We are in San Antonio, Texas, here for the 2024 All-American Bowl. The Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivins, and National Recruiting Analyst Cooper Petagna to break down some of the standouts, some of the top performers that we have witnessed here in practices both at the Alamo Dome and at Trinity University. And let's begin with you, Andrew. A couple of players that are headed to Clemson have caught your eye.
Yeah, the pass catchers. You think about Clemson, we know Dabo Swinney hasn't really embraced the transfer portal, so that true freshman class has to play. And I think if you start with tight end Christian Bentancur, a late add to the game, he was excellent during that joint practice between the East and West, create separation. You look at him, what he did on the field as a senior there in Illinois, caught 21 passes in his final game as a senior. He was excellent. Tough cover for the linebackers, really like him. And then TJ Moore, the wide receiver out of Tampa, a guy a ton of schools fought for back during the summer months, someone we had ranked inside our top 247. Normally you want the verified data points on him, but we shot him up there just based on the film. And then you look at him during one-on-ones, during the team session, he is getting deep. He is looking like one of the top wide receivers in the country. Came in at 6'3". That was a bit of a surprise to us. We didn't know he was that tall, and he can jump out of the building. So those two guys really stood out to me.
Cooper, speaking of pass catchers, maybe a player we don't know where he's headed yet, Gatlin Bair. Sounds like he's down to Michigan and Oregon, the player from Idaho who is a bit of an enigma. We were hoping to see some things from him, and you've been really impressed.
Yeah, that's why this week is so important. You get into this setting a little bit. You get the guy from Idaho. He comes out here, and there's no issue whatsoever. You looked at one of the best players on the field, especially in the morning session. He followed that up. Joint practices was really impressive as well. You get him out there, a little shade under 6'2", floating around 200 pounds. He can do everything. We know 10-1-8 guy in the 100 meters. So in terms of the speed, I think the thing that kind of stood out a little bit was the lateral agility, right? This guy in terms of in-breaking receiver can do a lot of different things, strong at the catch point as well. So super impressed with him. Drew, I think times we've come out here, guys from rural areas, they've struggled in this setting. Carter Nelson, one of those guys that I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to acclimate. That is not the case with Gatlin Bair.
He's been making plays. Another pass catcher that's been making plays, Jordan Shipp, had a couple touchdown grabs on Tuesday during practices this week. What have you thought about Jordan Shipp and what he might bring to the Tar Heels?
Yeah, he was our co-alpha dog for the session, and Jordan Shipp, another late add to the game. We've had all these opt-outs. We've had to go down the list, and we're glad we got him in here. Headed to North Carolina, caught passes from Jaden Davis, who's obviously now at Michigan, helping them prepare for the college football final in a few days. Over 1,000 yards as a senior, over 1,000 yards as a junior. He looks ready to go kind of day one, 6 foot, 190 pounds. You could have told me he was 215 pounds. He can roll, and he can track the football in that deeper third. He was given all types of defensive backs fits when we had that joint practice. I think he is just a complete receiver, and you look at what North Carolina wants to do on offense with Mac Brown there. I mean, they like to throw it around, get those guys involved. I think he's a name you need to know in Chapel Hill moving forward.
Yeah, big-time playmaker. Quarterbacks have had to get these guys the ball. There's 6 here in San Antonio, 3 on both teams, and there's one that's headed to the SEC that you've really liked, Coop.
Yeah, I love Walker White. I mean, you think about him, the guy that we have compared him to throughout this entire process has been Will Levis. We've been doing that for a year, and then he gets here, I think, half an inch and maybe 3 or 4 pounds difference, right? In an extremely toolsy passer who's improved as a senior, completion percentage improved. And you think about Auburn, what's the first thing you think about when you think about this class? Those dynamic receivers, right? You got Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Bryce Kane, Malcolm Simmons. Who's going to get those guys to football? They're still trying to figure that out right now. How about this guy? How about Walker White, right? And you think about the opportunity here in San Antonio because of the opt-outs. We had 6 invites at the quarterback position. Who was going to step up? Walker White, one of those late additions. He's been awesome this week. So natural in terms of the ball popping off his hand. He can make every throw on the field. Fast forward the clock 3 to 4 years from now, this is going to be a guy that NFL scouts are going to be drooling over. And what a project for Hugh Freeze. This is the type of player you want in your building.
Some of the best aspects of an event like this or a week like this is the competitive spirit. It's elite on elite, and we get to see the offensive linemen match up against some defensive linemen that are their size, maybe something we don't really see at the high school level. Kevin Haywood has been a player that's caught your attention, Drew.
Yeah, I don't think we've really talked enough about what Luke Fickell has been able to do with his recruiting class. Finish, I think it's their best class in over a decade. Ernest Weilor, we saw him flash a little bit at the Under Armour practices. Now you have Kevin Haywood, and I've been wondering, how did this guy get out of Pennsylvania? 6'6.5". 298 pounds. He wears that extremely well. I mean, he could carry 320, prototypical left tackle. And you think Wisconsin, when they were good, they had those linemen, those developmental guys. You stash them on the roster for a few years, get them in the weight room, and then they move people out of the way. I think Kevin Haywood can do just that. Reach is there, frame is there, and he was good during one-on-ones, just kind of extending the arc, giving Walker White and those other quarterbacks some time to throw. So he's been super impressive. And I think Luke Fickell, that strength program, I mean, watch out 2-3 years down the line.
We're a couple weeks removed now from the early signing period and the drama that surrounded Ryan Wingo, but he's still making headlines out here.
He had a good day today. He needed it, right? This is a guy that we have tucked inside the top 15. I think the number 4 receiver in the country, right behind Ryan Williams. And, he's a big kid, 6'2", 210 pounds, can run sub 10-6 guy in the 100-meter. Love the run after catch ability. There were some question marks coming into this week. I think production-wise, left a little bit of food on the table. But he showed up today, 1-on-1, 7-on-7, team setting as well. He's a big physical kid that's going to have to get his sea legs under him. He's going to a great spot. Steve Sarkisian, he's going to have his time to kind of grow into himself at the next level. So it was encouraging. We needed to see that. I think we're holding our breath a little bit, but he had a good day today.
The number one player in the class in the 2024 group is also here. Jeremiah Smith, the 5-star wide receiver, headed to Ohio State. Will he still hang on to that number one spot?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I was at breakfast this morning. Tom Loy, our good friend at 24/7 Sports, I said, I don't know, man. I'm a little concerned, right? Not concerned, but you start to overthink it. Jeremiah Smith's a guy, I've been evaluating him since he was a freshman, and then you see him, on the 7-on-7 circuit, the camp circuit. You see what he does as a junior, you see what he does as a senior, and you wonder if you're missing anything. And then you go out there on the practice field, and Jeremiah Smith, I mean, he's just the real deal. He's the most complete prospect here in the 2024 cycle. A guy that we think can step in. College coaches have said it. He could start at the Power 5 level right now today. So we'll see what happens. But every time that doubt starts to creep through, you watch Jeremiah Smith run a few routes, and you're like, okay, he is the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to my time at Washington, and I think about the receivers that we had there, Puka Nacua, Roma Dunze, those guys are pretty good. And then you think about a guy like Jeremiah Smith. I think he's the best receiver that I've seen since I've been doing it, whether it's on this side or the other side. During my time in player personnel, he is just such a clean prospect. And what does that mean? On and off the field, you got to be wired differently. He's had so much stuff thrown at him, right, in terms of NIL, being the number one player in the country. He came down, Ohio State, Miami. He's handled it perfectly. The other thing is, he's a pro. You think about Ohio State, that receiver room, that's what they do. They produce first-round talent after first-round talent. You think about a guy not only ready to play, I think this guy has a chance to step into Ohio State, be one of the best players at his position in the country from day one. He is completely different. So Drew's on the other side, and Drew's got the fatigue. He's been around him since he was 7th, 8th grade. This guy, for me, I love watching him play. Every time he goes out there, you expect him to win and to dominate. He's done that pretty much 9 out of 10 reps, and that's what the best player in the country is supposed to do.
I think the most impressive thing for him was like a simple 5-yard out route. At 214 pounds, he's dancing around making guys miss to pick up 3 extra yards. You look at Jeremiah Smith, almost seems like a tight end or a pass rusher out on this field right now, how built he is. And for him to just move that way, it was impressive. I mean, we have not seen that from a receiver in a while.